quadratic functions. Objective. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to evaluate values given a quadratic function, solve a quadratic function. So first let's talk about what a quadratic function is. That is this. Anytime you have an equation with an x squared as the highest power, that's a quadratic function. So that's the key to it, right there. That gets you a quadratic function. This is called the quadratic term. This is called a linear term because it has a power of 1, and this is called the constant term. And your coefficients are a, b, c. They're all constants. This is a quadratic in standard form. So this is considered standard form, where you have y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So standard form. So our first example, I'm going to give you an x. We're going to try to figure out the y value. Well, that's very simple. All we got to do is substitute it in. So if I want y of 0, I'm just going to plug in 0 for my x. Hopefully not as sloppy as I do it. And you get 1. There you go. Value is 1. X is 2, we're going to do the same thing. Just plug it in. And that's the last one I'm going to do because that's pretty basic. Like that. I will say when you do this, watch out. A lot of people make a mistake here. It's not 4 squared. You do order operation, do the power first. So this goes first. And I get to 4. Then you times it by negative 2. So negative 8 plus 6 plus 1. And I get negative 1. That's the value there. I would do 3, but it's the same thing. How about if I ask you, so this the next one's going to be like, I'm going to give you a point. I'm going to ask you, does this satisfy the quadratic function? Like, is it a value? Is it a solution to this quadratic? All you got to do is substitute the point in, and if it works, if it's a true statement, it does satisfy the quadratic function. If it doesn't, it does not. So that's how you tell if it's a solution or not. Just substitute it in, see if it works. So if we do this first one here, this is my x and this is my y. So I'm going to do 16 equals 3 times 2 squared plus 2 times 2. I get 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 4 is 16. So this does work, so this is a solution. So there we go. I imagine if I do this one, it will not be, but I guess why not just check? So if I do this, I get 1 equals negative 3 squared minus 2 times negative 3 plus 1. Other thing you want to watch out for is like right here. Remember, that negative's on the outside, so I'm going to do this squared first, and I get a positive 9. But there's still a negative on the outside, so I actually do get a negative 9. These two together get to a positive 6 and a plus 1, and I get a negative 2. So that is not a true statement, so this is not a solution. There we go. Let's move on. Now we're going to quadratic equation. The way you solve a quadratic equation is you substitute in for y. So when you substitute in for y, then you get a quadratic equation. And we'll talk about how to solve that. So that's what we're going to do here. So it's kind of like before, but now we're going to substitute in for y, which makes things much more interesting. So for a, I'm going to get 2 equals x squared minus 2x plus 3. And the way you solve a quadratic, I'll put right here, is, so this is how you solve a quadratic. We're going to set equal to 0. And then we're going to either factor or use a quadratic formula. Now later on we'll talk about a different way of doing it, which is you solve by moving the square, but for now we're going to talk about these two ways. So we're going to set equal to 0, and then their factor is a quadratic formula. So here I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. I'm going to get 0 equals x squared minus 2x plus 1. This does factor. It's actually a perfect square. Two things that multiply get 1, but add to get negative 2, or x minus 1 and x minus 1. Right, 1 times 1 is 1, and then we add them up, you get negative 2. You can split it, and that's all really have to solve one of them, and get x equals 1. By the way, since they're both the same answer, this is actually called a double root. I'll talk about that more when we get to discriminants. Since they're the same answer, you just got to write it once, but it is considered a double root. You get that same answer twice. Let's do the same thing with b here. So I'm going to plug this in with y. So I'm going to get 18 equals x squared minus 2x plus 3. We're just going to set equal to 0. 0 equals x squared minus 2x minus 15. Right, and all we have to do is factor this. I'm going to try to find two things that multiply to get negative 15, but add to get negative 2, and that goes like negative 5 and positive 3. I just want to reference, so it's easy. So I get x minus 5, x plus 3. Right, when I add those two up, I get negative 2. When I multiply, I get negative 15. Then we're going to split and solve. So we're going to set this equal to 0, you get x equals 5. I set this equal to 0, and you get x equals -3. And there we go. That's the lesson.